Hello.
Hi.
How are
Hello,
you?
we did it. I'm good. How are
Yes,
you?
I'm good. I'm just going to do a quick intro for us and then we can get
Sure.
started. Sound good?
Yep.
Great.
Sounds
So,
great.
my name is Taylor. I work in marketing at Random House, and today I'm being joined by Afia Atakora, author of Conjure Women, which is an incredible book. I'm such a huge fan.
Thank you.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your book for those of us who aren't familiar?
Yeah, so Conjure Women is historical fiction. It's my debut novel. And it's told in a narrative braid, so it's set right after the Civil War and before it. And it follows the story of Rue, who is a midwife and healer in this isolated town of recently freed slaves. And in the past, it sort of goes back to her mother, who was also a healer, and her childhood friend, Verena, who is the white daughter of the master on the plantation. And so Rue is sort of grappling with her past. In the present, she is faced with three obstacles, which is the birth of a strange baby, the arrival of a preacher, and a strange sickness that is sweeping through the town.
There's a lot going on in the book.
There's a lot going on.
Which
It's a meaty read.
Yeah, it's rich and it's that's what makes it so compelling, I think. And I was wondering if you could tell us about any research that you might have done to kind of inform some of that historical context.
Yeah, so I did a lot of reading. I started on the internet, which I think people kind of think like, okay, you go to the library, but I feel like there's a lot of like really great archives online that we don't really appreciate. A lot of librarians putting up digital work that's really useful. So for me, it was just a lot of personal accounts, diaries from that era, um, plantation records, slave manifests on ships, anything I could get my hands on that felt sort of personal and organic to the time period.
Was
Yeah,
there
and that's just
any,
where I started.
yeah, was there any one thing that was the most interesting or surprising that you uncovered in all of that research?
So for me, the most useful resource was the WPA in the 1930s, during the Great Depression, actually, formed an initiative to start interviewing freed slaves. So they were in their 80s and 90s talking about their experiences in slavery. And so this is like a huge record of their experiences and their personal stories. And Zora Neale Hurston, especially, who's an author and a journalist, did some great interviews. And for me, those were super helpful in sort of getting really close to the characters.
Oh my gosh, I'd love to read those. Those sound
Yeah, they're online.
perfect. As someone who loves your characters so much. And how
Thank
did
you.
these characters come to you? Were they inspired by real people from history? Are they figments of your imagination?
Yeah, I mean, I looked a lot again at these sort of diaries, at these sort of like snippets of people's lives. For me, I thought a lot about tropes too. Sort of what are we familiar with seeing? So the midwife is a familiar image, a preacher is a familiar image, and I sort of tried to look at those and turn them on their heads a little bit and see if I could investigate why those characters are so um, sort of constant in our reading.
Amazing. So
Yeah.
this is Taylor from Random House as a reminder, and I'm here with Afia Atakora, author of Conjure Women. If you have questions for Afia, feel free to drop those in below, and we'll get to some of those in just a few minutes. Afia, do you want to tell us about what your writing process is and your routine?
Yeah, so I got to talk about that a little bit with Random House on your guys' Instagram. But yeah, I'm definitely a night owl. I definitely write at night. Usually like 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. is when I get most of my work done, which is a little weird. I feel like other writers are like they wake up in the morning and they start writing, and I'm not not responsible enough for that.
Oh.
So for me, it's definitely at night, sort of that. I think it goes back to like being a kid and sort of reading in your bed, right, with like your flashlight. So for me, I think I'm sort of recreating being close to the story in that way.
I bet it feels a lot more like intimate that way too, because you're
Yeah, it's
the
like
only one up in the world.
exactly everyone else is asleep and it's just you and your weird characters and yeah,
Amazing. Well, that's when I was reading your book up at 1 in the morning because I couldn't put it down.
exactly.
So that translated. And so do you have like a set routine? Is it like every day you start writing at the same time in the same place, or is it just kind of whenever you can carve out time?
It's usually just whenever something interesting, sort of an interesting image comes to me, and I'll just start scribbling it down. Sometimes I'm not even near my computer, and I just write it down on a little piece of paper and come back to it. Editing towards the end of the book was a little bit more rigorous and sort of focused. I feel like that needs to sort of have a set ritual a little bit more, where you're like, okay, I'm going to tackle this chapter. Um, but the fun part for me is definitely at the beginning, where you just have that blank page and you're excited about that.
Yeah, there's a great audience question here asking how long it took
Sure.
you to write the book.
Oh man. So the first draft of the book took about 9 months. Perfect for a book about babies.
Yeah.
And it was just sort of this super dreamlike experience of just like writing the story and not really knowing what it was going to be about and how these chapters would come together. And then after that, probably about 2, 3 years of editing to sort of wrangle that sort of those passionate images into something and sort of discover what the story wanted to be.
Was there any one part of the process that was your favorite? Was it the free writing, the editing, actually having the book out in the world?
Well, having the book out in the world is awesome. It's so exciting. But definitely the beginning. I think not knowing what was going to be yet and getting to discover it and surprise myself, that's my favorite part. I love being at the beginning of the writing.
Yeah. Have you started on anything new, or are you still basking in?
Yes. I'm
Oh,
basking. I'm definitely deeply basking, but I've started my second novel, which is set in the Harlem Renaissance. So it does have some similarities to Conjure Women, but I'm excited to sort of be in a more modern era with like cars and electricity. And also sort of, it's a lot about New York. So having a specific place to sort of write about is exciting too.
yeah, your sense of place that you capture in Conjurement is so visceral and it felt so real to me.
Thank you.
Did you do any traveling as part of your research to those places in the South?
Yeah, so actually, one of the big places I went was in West Africa. Actually, it was a slave castle, Elmina Castle in Ghana, in on the western coast of Africa. And so that didn't figure into the novel specifically, but it was an important starting point to understanding um, what is the African experience in coming to America, what history does slavery have? What does that legacy look like as it goes down generations? And so for me, that was like a very visceral sort of starting point in
Amazing.
understanding where the story was going. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to briefly remind everyone again that this is Random House live with Afia Atakora, and we're
Yeah.
talking about her beautiful novel, Conjure Women. So do you ever get writer's block when you're writing?
um, yeah, definitely. I think I definitely get frustrated. For me, I just kind of try to step away, try to, one thing that was really sharing it with other readers as well. And so get their take, and they reacted to parts of the story that I didn't even realize I had written. And so for me, having other readers is such a huge way to sort of get myself excited again.
Yeah. Are you part of a writers group, or do you just have?
I am.
Okay.
I am. Shout out to my amazing group of writers, some friends from college who we meet every week and sort of go over what we're writing and give each other a little kick to get us going. And yeah, it's great.
Helpful to have that support on
It's
your
so helpful. Yeah.
yeah. Do you have any other tips or advice for aspiring writers?
Oh, man. Um, I would say look at other mediums. That's a lot as one of having read his blog.
Mm.
uh, watch movie, music. I feel like sort of exploring storytelling in different forms is really helpful. I feel like you learn a lot from what piece of music inspires or what TV show you're addicted to. What can you learn from that structure?
Yeah. So what have you been watching or listening to?
Oh gosh. Well, I finished Tiger King. I'm not over that yet.
Amazing.
I feel like that was actually really helpful in terms of like, okay, how do you use a documentary and sort of found footage and shape it into a narrative? I feel like I'm always thinking about that, right? How do you apply real things and make them into a story? So I actually feel like it was a guilty pleasure, but it was also a learning experience too.
Definitely. Amazing. So one of the major themes in your book is motherhood and birth, midwifery. Can you talk a little bit about those themes and what they mean in the book and also to you?
Yeah. I think for me, um, it's just timeless to think about motherhood. That was sort of the genesis of the story was a birth that I had seen on YouTube actually, and sort of the way that being a mother is something that goes through generations, right? And something you pass down and absorb as a daughter, and then maybe you don't want to be your mother, right? You
Mm-hmm.
don't want to learn those lessons, and then as you grow up, you sort of absorb them anyway. And so I think that was something I was really fascinated with: is what is the role of a mother in a society, and how does it shape a culture, generations?
Amazing. The mothers in this book, Miss Maybell is one of my favorite characters.
She's one of my favorites too.
Do you have one favorite in the book? Are they all kind of
I
equally?
think, I mean, definitely Rue is definitely a favorite. But Miss Maybell, I think she always kept that wonder,
Mm-hmm.
right? She's sort of mysterious throughout the book, and I think for me, I never really quite like unlocked her. She was sort of this like elusive figure that I really sort of enjoyed writing. Yeah,
Definitely an enigma, but again, what makes her so compelling, I think, to read
right.
about. Are there other books or writers that inspire you?
Definitely again, Zora Neale Hurston, Toni Morrison for sure. Octavia Butler was one. I actually read Kindred right before I started writing that, and I feel like it opened up sort of what you could do with a slave narrative and how you could tell it in a different way.
Definitely. Those are all authors that I love. And also your book also reminded me a lot of some of Jesmyn Ward's writing too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Great. Is there anything else that you want to tell us about writing or reading or your book?
Um, no, just keep writing, keep reading.
And
It's
plug your
hard. It's hard for
Barnes
me
and
too
Noble
right
book
now,
club,
but
right?
oh yes, Barnes and Noble Book Club. There's still time to jump in on that, read the book, and then join the discussion.
Yeah, it's
But yeah,
an amazing book, truly.
thank you.
Uh, well, thanks so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me and hosting.
Yeah, I'll let you go. This is about our time limit here. But thanks to
Sure.
everyone who tuned in. Again, you can find Conjure Women in any wherever books are sold, and
Yay.
it's amazing. Do you want to hold it up for a
Flash the
second?
cover.
Yes, it's gorgeous.
Yes, I love the cover.
Oh,
It's gorgeous.
well, thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.